In today's show, I'll be revealing a project that I think has the potential to hit the same market cap of Ethereum one day. And then at the end of the show, I'll be showing you exactly what I'm doing to stake it in order to earn passive income in this volatile market. It's going to be a massive show. Let's get straight into it. The market is very red today, and it's obviously not what we want to see. My portfolio is hurting. I know a lot of your portfolios are hurting, and I just want to come in and kind of reassure all of you that these days do happen in crypto. It's obviously not nice to see it all. We've seen minus 5, 6, 7% drawdowns on some altcoins, but it is part of the game, guys. And as much as these periods of volatility are hard, it is creating opportunities, and I'm going to be here every single day to help guide you through these times and present opportunities in these markets, because I believe that now is really the time where it's important to dedicate yourself to learning about crypto. So when this market turns, you have a leg up on the rest of the market. So let's go through a couple of the reasons why the market actually dropped today, and I'll give you my macro thesis on where I think we're going. So the important thing to remember is that crypto does not operate in a vacuum. Bitcoin is still highly correlated to equities, which are obviously influenced by macroeconomic conditions, and your altcoins are still very highly correlated to Bitcoin. So if you want market direction, you have to think macro, guys. Basically, Bitcoin is following the NASDAQ right now. We did see a sell-off in equities, specifically Microsoft and Google, ahead of the earnings reports, which are later today. So they are going to report on their earnings. Now, guys, Google and Microsoft make up 20% of the NASDAQ. And since Bitcoin is very correlated to equities still, if for example, Microsoft earnings did come in slightly weak, then we would see the Bitcoin price take a hit. So what we did see today was investors going risk off. A lot of investors are preempting the news by selling off their equities, which is why the stock market went down today. And then we're seeing that reflect across the Bitcoin price as well. So we're seeing kind of a pre-sell-off ahead of these announcements, which is why the market did come down quite steeply today. Remember, guys, we are following Bitcoin right now. So your altcoin bags, they are basically following the direction that Bitcoin is setting at the moment. So you have to make sure that you come up with a plan. Because if the NASDAQ did, for some reason, go down 20%, then obviously Bitcoin could drop 30, 40%. Now, with alts being exaggerated versions of Bitcoin, if the Bitcoin price did drop by 20%, some altcoins could go down 40, 50, 60%. Now, that is obviously a very bearish scenario. I'm not necessarily saying that will happen, but I think it's important to have a plan. So if you guys don't have a plan in this market, today I'm going to help you formulate a bit of a plan right now and start looking into ways that you can actually combat market volatility. If you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail essentially in this market. And we have to be prepared for both scenarios. A rally straight back up to the upside, but also potentially a bit more downwards momentum. So Alex Becker has a plan, and I want to talk about his plan right now because I thought it was actually quite insightful. So he said Sandbox during the bear market last year was the market cap of 20 to 30 million, like some tiny projects right now. It then obviously went on and grew to billions. If and when we go down, you're going to see multiple shots at projects in gaming, and I think across crypto in general, that will see similar gains from their lows. So he says we should be relaxing, researching, and preparing because basically now is the time to be putting in the effort, to be researching and be preparing, because even if the market is going to go down, let's say another 30%, well, if we're in a position where we're putting in all this time now, all this research now to identify strong narratives, then when the market drops, we're going to have such an advantage over the rest of the competition because we're going to be in the projects that'll perform the strongest on the rebound, and we're going to have the intel above and beyond the rest of the market, guys. So by researching and preparing, that is the best thing we can do right now to kind of double down on our research. The fact that you guys are here watching this video is a really positive sign because it shows that you're dedicated to learning in this market, and I want to help you learn as well. So that's Becker's plan to research and prepare, get involved with alpha groups, really learn about the industry, and keep your eye on the ball. This is so important, guys. Keep your eye on the ball when it's boring and dead, because boring and dead markets are where millionaires are born, and that is just a fact. All those guys that made life-changing money in the 2018 bull run, and then obviously the bull run last year, they all made money because most of them were holding from the times when the market was dead and the market was boring. So let's talk about, before I reveal this altcoin that I think is going to perform strongly, let's talk about a plan that I am having right now to combat market volatility. And that plan is actually to have 25% or more of my portfolio in stablecoins. So right now I'm taking a lot of my yield from protocols that I'm farming on, for example, Francium and AVAX. I'm taking a lot of that yield now, around 50% into stablecoins, and I'm farming those stablecoins because I want to have at least a 25% to 30% plus stablecoin position, which means I'm in a great position to take advantage of these dips when they happen. So if the market keeps dipping, I'll be in a very strong position. And I've actually created something with Donkey Finance to help you guys. So Donkey Finance and I teamed up and we created a stablecoin farming strategy, which is paying around 30% APY. So if you want to earn 30% APY on your stables, you can copy my strategy directly that I'm updating every single week with my research team that basically goes across crypto and scans for the best risk reward stablecoin plays in crypto. Right now, we're executing a strategy with Planet Finance where we're borrowing USDC, we're swapping it for UST, and we're looping it using the AUST loop, which is paying around 35% yield. We're also doing some farming over on Beats with this USDB DAI pool, and we're also obviously depositing in Anchor. I guess the real benefit of jumping in a pool like this would be that we're automatically compounding it for you. We're automatically searching for the best opportunities. So if you want to farm stables and go slightly more risk off in this market, obviously as the times are very volatile, there's a link in the description for you guys to copy my stablecoin farming strategy. Just remember, guys, there's always risks in DeFi. There's smart contract risk. There's DPEG risk. So no matter how much research we put in, we can't avoid all the risks. So just remember that, it's not as safe as holding fiat in your bank account, but it's giving you a good option to be able to farm and earn 27% in your stable. So link in the description to get involved with that. That is one of the plans I'm having right now. And as Becker mentioned, now is not the time to give up and sulk. Now is the time to double down in your research, because every farm that you're involved in right now, every token that you farm right now is going to be worth exponentially more when the market rises. So when the market rises, the gains on the tokens that you're farming are probably going to be 3 to 5x higher than they are today. So don't let emotion control you, and start researching and look at tokens that you can accumulate when the time's right to give yourself a leg up in this market. Now let's talk about the ecosystem that I think potentially has signs of being the next Ethereum, and that I think could offer us a nice opportunity to make some serious gains when the market does recover. Now, a lot of you have guessed it in the comments. I do want to talk about Solana today, and that is the main topic of today's video. But I want to go deep into Solana. I want to talk about what I have learned over the past few weeks, the positives, the negatives, and then I'm going to provide a staking strategy off the back of that, which I think is giving some great yield and a great opportunity to get involved with Solana DeFi. So I want to talk about my Solana story for a little bit now so you guys have a bit of context. So I actually bought Solana back in March last year. I bought it for around $20 to $30, and I actually made a 10x. So I rode from about $27 up to $230, and I actually sold the top. It was one of the only altcoins where I've completely sold the top on. I made one mistake, however. I put a lot of those profits into the ecosystem projects because I was getting a little bit degen, obviously like your Sunny, your Sabers, and I took a little bit of a loss on them. But I also made some profits in the ecosystem from the Solana that I cashed into stablecoins and cashed into Phantom projects. So I did very well off my Solana trade, but I basically exited my Solana position entirely. Now, for a while, that's because I struggled to understand what Solana's competitive advantage was. For a long time, I was worrying, what is Solana's advantage over projects like Phantom, which have, better relative metrics? What is Solana's advantage over projects like AVAX, which has subnets? And I struggled to answer the question for a long time until this week when I really decided, or over the last week, sorry, where I really delved into the statistics and I tried to create a thesis. And I did come to some conclusions which have led me to believe that Solana could potentially be one of the best risk-reward plays in the top 10. So I want to tell you my thesis, and then I want to go into my staking strategy for taking advantage of this. So just so you guys understand understand how the technology works, because this is very important. Solana operates on a proof of history consensus mechanism, which means it has a reliable clock between computers, which makes synchronizing very, very simple, which results in a higher TPS on Solana. So Solana can offer a very high speed. I think it has a theoretical limit of over 710,000 TPS, and it had the ability on its testnet to hit highs of 65,000 TPS. So, I mean, it's no secret that Solana's one of, if not the fastest blockchain in crypto. I mean, that's just a fact. We can see it based on the statistics here that it is one of, if not the fastest blockchains in crypto. But I think the real innovation behind the proof of history consensus is actually what it's doing in terms of solving the blockchain trilemma. So it hasn't solved it completely. It's got issues that I'm going to get into after I kind of lay down my thesis here. But what it can do is it's giving Solana the ability to scale. And it also means that projects launching on Solana don't have to worry about liquidity being fragmented, as Solana doesn't rely on L2s. It doesn't rely on other scaling mechanisms. It basically operates on its own consensus, proof of history, and it scales on its own in a single global state. Kind of like what Phantom's trying to achieve through EVM. That's what Solana is able to achieve through proof of history. So that's one of the major benefits to it. Now, look at this ecosystem. I think the really interesting part about the massive ecosystem that's being built on Solana is the fact that Solana is not EVM compatible. So Solana isn't EVM compatible like an AVAX or a Phantom. It's actually built on its own development kit, which means that every application that builds on Solana needs to build out in its own right. The negative is that it's hard for new projects to deploy new applications on Solana, but the positive is that the ecosystem has grown in its own right. So it has that really strong branding behind it, that really strong community allegiance behind it, that other chains don't necessarily have that are on your MetaMask, because people kind of flick between them, right? People might flick between the best yields on AVAX, on Phantom, on Matic, whereas Solana having its own ecosystem being built out on its own kit means that a lot of people are more loyal to the Solana ecosystem. And we have seen a lot of applications launch. I mean, that is a massive bundle of applications on Solana. Its DeFi ecosystem is also massive. I mean, just look at the sheer amount of applications, and not just crappy ones, quality projects actually deploying on Solana. And obviously we've got gaming and NFTs, which are ones of the biggest sells on Solana. So right now, let's break down the statistics, the metrics, the tangible metrics that I've been looking at, which suggest to me that Solana could be a potential Ethereum killer in the future. You know, the term Ethereum killer is a little bit overdone in crypto, but I guess it does have genuine comparisons to Ethereum that I want to kind of break down in this show right now. So let's go through the statistics now to work out A, whether it could be a good buy, and 2, how to get involved in the staking ecosystem of Solana. So this was actually the statistic which kind of started getting me interested in Solana and the ecosystem. Nansen last month released their data on the Solana ecosystem, and it showed that the 7-day active addresses by chain are the highest on Solana than any chain. So this means Solana has more active users than BSC, Ethereum by about a 2.5x, Polygon, Ronin, AVAX, Phantom, and even Terra. So the amount of sheer users on the Solana chain is one of the real reasons why I'm bullish on Solana, because it has that real user growth to underpin the network. Now, I have a startling statistic that I'm about to show you, and it's this daily transaction statistic. Now, keep in mind, this was in February because I couldn't find the data up until April. But in February, Solana had a daily transaction moving average of 48 million transactions. Now, if you guys need a bit of a comparison here to put this in perspective, Ethereum does 1.5 million transactions a day. Phantom does 700,000 transactions a day. Solana does 48 million transactions a day. That's almost 30x the amount of transactions than Ethereum. Now, there's a good reason for this, and that reason is NFTs, and that reason is the cheap fees. Obviously, if Ethereum had as low gas fees as Solana has, it'd probably also have 50 million transactions. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I mean, it is startling that we're getting statistics like this, and it's one of the most used blockchains, not only in terms of active addresses, but also in terms of daily transaction volume. And a lot of this is actually being backed up by the NFT data. So on this column in the right, we can see the NFT sales volume. Now, if we look at Ethereum, doing around 126 million a day in NFT sales, Solana comes in, second best by a mile at 8 million. I mean, the next best is an 8x away, which is AVAX, Flow, and Ronin, which is much less at 600. So Solana is leading the pack in terms of NFTs. And I do think that this gives it a nice lead in if it ever wanted to expand its gaming ecosystem, which is obviously one of the biggest sells that the Solana network has to offer. It's the fact that the speed and the scalability of the blockchain are going to lead to great games and great NFT ecosystems in the future. Now, I was talking to Hustle, who was obviously our gaming expert earlier today, and he said one of the issues right now is that we're not seeing a lot of great games on Solana yet. We've got Monkey Ball, we've got Star Atlas coming out, but that might be a couple years away. So right now we're not seeing heaps of games, but I do think that's also an opportunity because we know it has the tech to support these games, and we know it already has the NFT sales to support these ecosystems. So look, the gaming ecosystem doesn't really exist to the same extent that people would like you to believe, but at the same time, I think it will exist, and I think that is something that will be a real narrative to drive Solana in the future, its ability to kind of facilitate crypto gaming. Just quickly, guys, Arweave is a token we talk a lot about on the channel, and you guys have to remember that Arweave stores the data for Solana. So all these NFT data from all of these sales, all of these transactions, which is 48 million a day, all that data is being stored by Arweave. Arweave actually came up with a partnership with Solana to store its blockchain data. So the Arweave weave size has grown substantially. It's over 62 terabytes now. So we're seeing the Arweave network really expand off the back of this Solana growth. So Arweave is another player off the back of Solana, which could be quite bullish, and I just wanted to sneak that in there. Now, in terms of DeFi, the Solana ecosystem is building out. Now, we've seen the Solana DEXs actually pick up a lot of steam over the last few weeks. So Orca and Jupiter, which are two DEXs on Solana, have seen quite a large increase in exchange volume. As we can see here, the exchange trade volume is increasing rapidly, as Patrick pointed out on this tweet. I think we see Orca at $134 million a day coming in at number 7, which is a DEX on Solana. And we're also seeing Jupiter at 100 million now. So we're seeing over $250 million worth of DEX volume every single day on Sol, which is quite bullish in my opinion, because we're starting to see DeFi ramp up a little bit. We know that the bees love to buzz around ecosystems. We saw the Phantom buzz, and then the bees buzzed over to Avalanche, and could potentially the bees be buzzing back to Solana? Maybe it's starting to happen now, but in the future, it's almost inevitable that it will happen, given the tech that's underpinning Sol. So now we've kind of talked about some positives. Let's talk about some negatives, because there's a reason why the Solana price is down 60% from its highs. And it's very important to note these negatives before we get into these staking strategies I'm going to show you. So the major negatives right now is it is very centralized. So it has 1,000 validators, which is, a lot more than something like a Phantom that has 100, but it's also a lot less than Ethereum, which has 300,000. So 1,000 validators compared to 300,000 on the Ethereum side, it isn't a lot of validators in the scheme of things. Now, this is just a reflection of how new the technology is. It's only been around for a few years, so these projects need time to become more scalable, but obviously centralization is a bit of an issue. I will say that centralization and VC backing are a major downfall, but at the same time, having the VC backing of FTX and obviously Sam, who is one of the biggest backers of Solana, and Alameda Research is as well. That is one thing that's really underpinning the network. Now, although VC backing could be seen as negative, I think it's also a major positive, because it means basically it's a lot harder for an ecosystem like Solana to fail versus some of these other L1s that don't have the same amount of capital behind them. We always say on Banter that you want to follow the smart money, and the smart money is clearly backing Solana, whether you like it or not. It has that major FTX backing, and they're not going to want to see this fail, guys. So that is one reason why I'm still bullish on Solana, just because of the backing that it has behind it. but it has suffered repeated outages, obviously. It's had about 6 serious outages, which is a major, major concern. And I'm not going to just, brush past that and be super bullish. I want to be objective in this video. And I will say that it does concern me that it's had all these outages. The one thing I will say is that, it's something they want to fix. Obviously, going forward, they're going to make improvements to the network. This technology is super new. Proof of history has only been around for a few years. So they do need to continue to implement improvements if they want to have less outages and more decentralization. But as of now, it is an issue that it's getting these outages. And it's also an issue that we're seeing buggy and slow transactions. So the Solana network, you might find if you use it with this DeFi strategy I'm about to show you, it may bug out a little bit. You may get some failed transactions, and that's not great. But what I'm kind of remembering is that the Solana transaction volume is so high. Like an AVAX with a transaction volume of 800,000 a day just doesn't have to deal with the sheer amount of pressure that the Solana network is dealing with in the tens of millions of transactions per day. So the fact that Solana can keep its gas this low and still be able to facilitate transactions is a big win in my opinion. But obviously it needs to improve this downtime issue, and it needs to improve the issue of failed transactions if it is to truly be a success. Obviously, though, its failures give us a little bit of a better entry. If Solana was the perfect blockchain right now, it would be the market cap of Ethereum. And this video wouldn't be called the next Ethereum. This video would be called the Solana video, because Solana would already be a top 3 project. The fact it does have major issues does create opportunity. So I'm viewing it as a positive thing, but obviously you have to be aware of those issues. So let me get into how to stake Solana right now, because there are opportunities, obviously, through the growth of the DeFi ecosystem for you guys to get involved. Now, with the state of the market right now, with the market being so volatile, you need to have DeFi strategies which can ensure you're earning passive income. Right now is not the time to be aping into projects and holding them in your wallet. Now is the time to be earning passive income through DeFi so that you can keep the ball rolling while this market is down. That is one of the ways that I am continuing to keep the portfolio ticking over. So farming is crucial at the moment, and I can't stress that enough. So I'm going to show you right now how to farm Solana and the best strategies that I'm looking at. So just quickly, if you want to purchase Solana, you can do so on ByBit. There's a link in the description. If you use the referral link to sign up to a ByBit account, we're actually going to be doubling 3 lucky winners accounts. So if you sign up for a ByBit account and you fund your account, we'll actually be doubling up to $1,000, whatever you deposit if you're lucky enough to win. So we're going to be doubling 3 accounts. You've probably seen Ran doubled someone's account with $10,000 the other day, which was awesome to see. So if you guys don't have a ByBit account and you want to sign up, you can do so using the link in the description. And obviously you can use that to purchase Solana. So let's get into a couple staking strategies, and I'm going to go over these quickly. I'm not going to bore you all day with how I'm staking my Solana. I want to be quite quick with you and show you how I'm staking right now. So the first staking strategy I'm using is on, I think it's called Francium. And Francium is a borrowing and lending protocol on Solana. So if you go to the lend category here and you click on lend and you scroll down to Sol, you can see that if you lend your Sol to Francium, you'll be earning a 13.63%. Now, the benefit to this strategy is it's a single-sided stake. So you don't need to LP. You're not risking impermanent loss. You can just stake your Solana and lend it in this pool for 13.63%, which is quite good in my opinion. So if you click on the deposit button, you can actually lend your Solana for 13%. You can choose how much you want to lend. You will obviously need a Phantom or a Solflare wallet, Phantom, which has a PH in it, to have your Solana to use DeFi. But I think it is a great strategy to get involved with Solana single staking, and obviously having a 13% yield is quite good compared to other alternatives. I think if you stake it through the wallet directly, you'll be earning around 8%. So a single stake on the lending side is obviously quite good. Remember the risks. There's smart contract risk. There's obviously utilization risk when it comes to borrowing and lending. I think that it's a fairly good pool. I mean, it's got $40 million deposited. People aren't stupid. They wouldn't be depositing if they thought it was crazy risky, and the APR does suggest that. But obviously be aware of the risks. And the other strategy I wanted to show you on Francium is this strategy here, which is paying a crazy APR, by the way. It's 137% on Solana USDC. So you guys can actually click farm here. And if you connect your wallet, you can create a liquidity pair between USDC and Solana, and you can earn 137% on this LP. You got to be aware of impermanent loss though, because if the Solana price tanks, or if it say 5 to 10x's, there is going to be a spread where you lose funds versus holding it in your wallet. But I still think at an APY of 137%, it basically counters out any impermanent loss you're going to run into. Like Solana would virtually have to crash 80% for you guys to be experiencing impermanent loss, or it would need to like 10x, because that is such a high APY. I don't think the risk here is impermanent loss. I actually think the bigger risk here is the fact that this APY could drop, thus creating impermanent loss. So obviously it's paying quite a high APY right now, but if it does drop, let's say down to like an 80% APY, then you're going to see impermanent loss kicking in at lower levels. So it's going to take less of a price impact for you to experience permanent loss with a lower APY than an APY of 137%. So just keep that in mind. But I do think Francium has some of the best pools. If you do want to degen a little bit, go a little bit riskier and earn 137%. But obviously the safest way, and where most of my Solana would be going, is to the validator staking through the Phantom wallet directly, and through a lending protocol like Francium in the single-sided vaults, which are paying 13.63%. But if you're going to do the pairs here, then just make sure it's with a smaller percentage of your portfolio, maybe 15 to 20% of your Solana, not all of your Solana by any means. I put most of your Solana in single staking. But remember, this video is not financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. Just quickly, though, before I head off, I want to look at the price, because obviously you guys, you're seeing this price, it's crashing. You probably want to know, will it dip more? If you saw the tweets earlier in the video, I do think that this market could come down a little bit more. I'm not naive to that fact. At the same time, we are getting much better looks now than we were at $250. So I would, I wouldn't necessarily suggest aping in, but looking to accumulate Solana over the next few months could be a good play. I think it's one of the safer bets in the top 10. And this is the reason why I'm making a video on it today. It's not going to make you rich overnight. Solana isn't the place to do that. But when I look at the top 10, it looks to me like it could be one of, if not the best bet in terms of risk reward, because it's come down from $250 to $95. It's got a market cap which has now been overtaken by Terra earlier today. I mean, all of these, Solana, Terra, Cardano, are all sitting around a $30 billion market cap. So I do see Solana as a project that could potentially push up to the Ethereum levels if the market did get a massive rally. But in the short term, I think it does present a good risk reward opportunity versus some of the other projects in the top 10. So that is kind of my thesis on Solana. But obviously, this isn't a call. This video isn't a buy call for Solana. This video is more to show you the metrics that are making me think Solana could be a narrative in the future that performs well. But by no means should you be aping now, in my opinion. But obviously, this isn't financial advice. I'm just showing you the metrics and the strategies that you can employ to better yourself in terms of profiting in this crypto market. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you smash the like button, guys. I'm still going live every market. And, it can be draining as a creator sometimes, having to make content every day when the market's going down and people are getting angry at you on Twitter. So if you do support this content and support, what I'm trying to do with setting you guys up for financial freedom, then smash the like button and show your support for these videos, and subscribe if you're new and you got something out of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. EST. Peace out.